Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rip and Email Monday. Today, I wanted to dive into the latest AMP for email release from Gmail. It's the end of 2020 going into 2021. Now, if you don't know what AMP for email is, it's the effort done by Google and the Google team to make email more engaging. Now, this year has been one of the biggest years in the email marketing space. Most companies have started to push email more and more to get engagement and conversion. So it's not going anywhere. But the fact that email hasn't evolved for the past 15 years and more is quite challenging for marketers. That effort done by Google will allow you as a brand to turn your email into a slightly more engaging experience. And I'm going to show you in depth some examples of how you can use it and where you can use it. I'm also going to be sharing the latest updates by Google and what are the limitations of this technology so you know where it stands. Let's go ahead and summarize some of the latest releases. Before I do that, this is an example of how it looks like. You get an email, you can actually have a carousel within your email, very popular with booking websites. You can have some layered CSS. When you click on something, it pulls up the second option. You can expand. You have some cool effects with animations. I've tested many of these, so if you bear with me, I'll show you how that will look like. Now, AMP is not a new tech, as I mentioned, guys. It's a toolkit by Google a few years back. I highly recommend you check it out to see what they've built previously and how you can adopt it to your own use. And this year's release, again, end of 2020, coming into 2021, they supported more properties like CSS grids, flexbox, animations, really cool, attribute selectors, negative margins, and pseudo classes. One of the main problems with this technology and why it hasn't picked up too much in the ESP world is that not a lot of clients support it. I'm talking about the email clients. Gmail hasn't supported it across all devices and across all versions. They're getting better at it. Mail.ru is one of those emails that's supported. Yahoo is a new email that started to support it. There's a big issue with Outlook. So that's one of the things you have to consider when sending out emails is that who's my biggest client? Look at your analytics. If you have the majority from Gmail or from Yahoo, maybe it's worth investing. Otherwise, I would say do not do it. The problem with that tech also, if the recipient does not support this tech, they're going to see some defaults and some things. So it's going to create a lot of work for you. Okay, hopefully this will mature in the next few years. In terms of deliverability, a lot of SMTP services are also supporting it. And this is primarily for things like when the email gets rendered, gets transmitted, the elements within the email are not getting stripped out, and they're maintaining that structure of design. Another cool thing, they simplified the sender registration process, so it's a little bit more streamlined there. They've increased the limit of the AMP part, and this is really important because if your email hit 100K, it gets cut off. Now they've increased that in the AMP email type to 200K. You don't want your email to have some cool designs and CSS properties, and all of a sudden it's getting stripped halfway because the email is quite heavy. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can always look up how Gmail clips email when it gets to 100K. They usually put a little message on the bottom saying, this message has been, I think, cut off. Click here to read view message or something like that, full message. So that's a really important 100% increase in the size. Another thing is handling the errors within the AMP email, meaning if you started to fill out a form and you left that form empty or without submitting, they give you an error. If you're offline and trying to render some content, they give you an error. So I think this is critical from the usability perspective to know that you haven't completed your, the next step. Another huge enhancement this year is that they supported AMP for email on Gmail engines or Gmail apps. So if you have it on your iPhone or on your Android, you'll most likely will be able to view many of the AMP elements. That's really, really important. Now, I want to show you some of these examples, how they work, where you can test them, and also some of the bottlenecks that I saw myself using this technology. Now, they do have two different, what they call playgrounds. One of them is amp.gmail.dev/playground. Again, amp.gmail.dev/playground. I'll put in the link in the description. And they also have playground.amp.dev. Both of them are pretty much the same, except this one is powered by Google and you can email samples to yourself. Let me show you some of the design elements here. One of them is the autocomplete. Now, if I type in anything here, I don't think it shows, but the copy on the left might have some autocomplete options, which when you type in, it gives you a whole bunch of suggestions. So that experience can happen from email. There's also a form. That one is really cool. So you can add a capture form, and once you submit it, it goes somewhere. That's also important, considering a lot of people drive registrations from email. But I do think the technology in marketing automation has come a long way to be able to just click a button and confirm your registration. So that's a little bit of, you have to find a use case for it. Accordions, very popular. Some animation here. Okay. And the animation, although, you can do animated GIFs, obviously, some of the stuff were done in a slightly different fashion. They beefed up technically how they support animated GIFs. Carousels, this one is another one that's popular. And I highly encourage you go in and you check all these other examples that they have. Now let me open up my email. And I want to mention something really important, you guys. If you do not go to your settings of your email and go to General tab, you're going to see a section here that's called Support for Dynamic Email. All right, give me 1 second. Go. You have to enable it. So if you have it off, this could actually not render the email properly. And you have to add the sender as during development to your safe list. Otherwise, the email won't render. So there are some few steps to be made prior to launching it. Now, here are some examples again. This is the animation email. It's simply an animated GIF. And by the way, note this flash lightning thing here. This means that it's an AMP email. Type inside the inbox. So this one is the same exact thing that I showed you there with the auto suggest, which is pretty awesome. This is the example for doing sections that expand. Carousel. And this one is just a card or a selector that you can select. Not too obvious, but I think you get the point here. And finally, last but not least, is the form option. So if I go ahead and just fill out my form, Rich at VBOUT. Let's see. I already submitted that. There we go. Thanks, Rich, for trying AMP. All right. So these are some of the things or the cool things that were released. Hopefully, I gave you some insights on how you can use AMP for your own business. But let me summarize a couple of important points. AMP, although it takes your email experience one level up, it has a lot of limitations because not a lot of emails support it. The experience of building it natively within like a drag and drop interface is not quite possible yet. There's some code know-how that you need to have in order for you to implement it. What's the fallback, for example, when someone does not support it? So you have to sort of design for two different experiences. And finally, I think it's worth looking into your demographics. As the majority of your recipients on Gmail, or those that support it, or are they scattered around the web? In which case, it might not make more sense. All right, this is it, guys. I would love to hear your feedback on how you can use AMP. What are some of the ideas you think that could apply to you? And I'm pretty sure you'll find some additional support for AMP in VBOUT and other tools in the upcoming year. So thank you so much, and hopefully you found this helpful.